So Kim, you wanted to watch Akira, whatever. Apparently, this is a movie that has been, well, this movie's been around forever. This is probably my third time watching it. Like, I haven't watched it a lot myself, but I have seen it before. This is a pretty big, influential thing, I would say, especially in anime and mangas and all that sort of stuff. And the fact that I know you're into animes and all that, and you haven't seen it yet was a little bit surprising. So, first of all, going into this, what were your like, what were you thinking you were stepping into? Do you have any idea what was going on?
No, so I looked at the cover of the DVD and I didn't even realize that it was a bike. I thought it was a car at first, which like they're not
Oh
super
man,
different, right? But
yeah.
like as soon as I saw that, I immediately felt a little regret because I thought that I was going to have to pull some old ass redneck NASCAR knowledge to have a conversation about this movie. I truly knew nothing about what this was.
Really? That is weird to me.
and,
So,
and like I'm sure that because like I grew up with anime, right, and manga, and I'm sure that at
yeah.
some point I had probably heard of Akira and I knew like what it generally was, but any of that information just like left my adult brain. So like watching this you know without any of that background knowledge was really interesting.
Sure. I mean, that's fair. And to be fair, one of the first time I watched this, I was way too young for it. Like, I didn't understand what the hell was going on at all the first time. Um Again, like, probably my third or fourth viewing in my whole life, yesterday, from when we're talking here. And I still kind of don't know what's going on with some stuff, but I have definitely more knowledge because, like, it isn't shocking anymore, right? Like, I knew the big weird things that happened, so I was able to kind of pay attention a little bit more to how the story kind of like is woven or whatever. And it helps a lot because I feel like, if I remember correctly, the first and even second or third time, there are a lot of moments that are visually just like incredible and messed up in different ways, and it might maybe takes you out of like the important stuff that's happening in the actual like story that's happening at that moment as well. Um so yeah, I don't know. Okay, so let's just jump right in here. So you surely there are a lot of things in here that you probably recognized in other properties, because a lot of things were influenced by Akira. Going forward, this came out in 1988, and I'll just start talk. We'll just start talking about the movie, like, story stuff. Kind of, I have everything in order here, so if you're missing anything or if I'm missing anything, we can just jump in and chat about it. But I kind of like, first of all, the movie starts with Tokyo being destroyed by what seems like a nuke, and there's just kind of like a cold open of Tokyo being destroyed and text saying that World War III begins in 1988 after Tokyo explodes, and 2019 is kind of like, it jumps 30 years ahead from that, and that's kind of where like we go in and start like meeting the characters or whatever. So what are your initial thoughts right at the get-go?
I definitely like the opening of like that random explosion that you know nothing about. Like you don't even really connect it to like a war or anything. It's just like explosion.
Yeah.
And then it jumps to 2019, which man, meeting the main characters was really interesting. The biker gang, because I did not know that they were children. That they were
Yeah.
teenagers
Yeah.
because of the art style. And I recognize that like this is very influential, but I kind of don't like the art style specifically for the characters because they all look so old to me. And obviously, like the characters, the children later are meant to look that way. But even like all the biker gang dudes, like when they get arrested and the cop says, "Okay, y'all need to go back to school and I'll have a chat with your principal." I thought he was kidding until they actually went back to school. Like, oh,
Yeah.
bikers. Oh,
Yeah. No,
but I
it's
liked
crazy.
Yeah, I liked there's the scene where the Kaneda, the main character, his biker gang is trying to fight another biker gang, right?
The
And they
clown
have
gang.
yeah, and they have this like weird motorcycle chicken competition, and it just
Yes.
made me think of joust. It made me think of jousting, and I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah. No, it's really cool. And that actually spawns like one of the most influential animated moments going forward, where a bunch of things kind of rip that the Akira slide, they call it, where right after he does like the motorcycle slide and there's this kind of like him in the middle of the screen, like sideways or whatever. Like a whole bunch of things have kind of ripped that off going forward or paid homage to that. So that is a very cool moment. I like that one a lot. The clown gang and the what were they called? The capsules or whatever. His gang that
Yeah,
he's the leader of.
yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a cool moment. That's a cool moment for sure. Um and
Oh, and
just
the cop also, sorry, back on
no
like the
no.
age thing and the art. I forgot the cop also said he's 25, and I was like, you look like you could be in your 40s. What do you mean you're 25?
Yeah, everybody's kind of like super aged. I always just kind of interpreted that as like when Tokyo fell and Neo Tokyo kind of came up in the last 30 years, it's just like a shitty life for everybody, right? So you have kids like committing crimes and trying to band together to survive or whatever. It just
Uh,
everything in this like in this city sucks. Like everybody's having a bad time pretty much. So it made sense to me that they'd be so young.
yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Like whenever if you're not taking care of yourself, in different ways, then you're gonna look like you're older than you actually are.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely get that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And like they do a kind of good job of giving you all of that information right at the beginning with, again, like you said, the like teenagers starting a motorcycle gang and fighting other opposing motorcycle gangs, and just there's a strange brutality that I don't think you're expecting right away, especially when you think of like an older anime. Uh, Specifically, I think one of the capsule members like attacks the leader of the clown gang. Joker is his name, and he just like smashes his head into them, and like they just fall, and you can hear their like neck crunch or whatever when they hit the ground. Like it's just immediately extremely brutal in a way that maybe is off-putting to some people. Like I wonder back then how many people went to go see this in a theater with their kid or whatever because it was an animated feature, and like all of the crap that happens is just insane.
Damn, yeah, I kind of want to know that too. How many kids got super fucked up because they watched this movie at a real bad time?
Yeah, and like I definitely feel like I watched some things that I wasn't ready for when I was young because like in the 80s, that's just kind of the way it was, right? Like kids entertainment had some messed up things here and there. Uh but like none of it was this. Like Akira has some of the weirdest and most fucked up shit in a cartoon or like an animated feature ever. And it came out in 1988, like a long time before maybe like the internet and things kind of desensitize people to extreme violence or any of that sort of thing. But yeah, this world just in general kind of sucks. And it's kind of they compound on that when the next scene we see like a guy moving briskly through traffic with a kid shooting two dogs, which is kind of an interesting choice. You don't usually see that like in animated stuff at all, or in anything. You don't usually see animals get killed
Yeah,
on
even in live
film.
action stuff, like people don't really want to put that in a movie because it's
Yeah,
heartbreaking.
yeah, it is. And like so the cops are chasing this guy and this kid, and they just gun him down in like cold blood and just like a full 10 seconds of just gore. Basically, they just gun him down like a RoboCop or something. It's crazy. Uh,
It was so excessive because they like gunned him down the one time, and then
yeah,
he was somehow still alive because anime. And
It-
then like he's obviously protecting this kid, and the kid like gets away from, this guy bleeding out. And then the army, like a group of soldiers, continue to move in and blow him up again with gunshots. And it's like you didn't even need that many. Like he can barely move. One person could have come up to him and finished him off. That was
yeah,
wild.
it's nuts. And like the kid looks all fucked up too, but it's kind of interesting too how much emotion they gave him in his face when he's just kind of like recoiling and screaming in horror at the dude that was, we find out pretty quick, kind of trying to like save him or take him away from this institute he was at, this facility. And yeah, there's just this kind of like weird moment of the kid screaming, and there's like a psychic reverberation where the buildings start like having the glass blow out and he disappears immediately. So they kind of set the stage pretty early with these weird looking kids that you see have some sort of power, but maybe aren't necessarily sure about what their deal is. All you know is that they look grayish blue and super old or aged, even though they're children. Really weird. Just really weird shit.
Yeah, and that's all happening like at the same time that Kaneda's gang is fighting the clowns, right? Like those are kind of
Yeah.
happening at the same time, just at like
Yeah.
in different parts of Tokyo.
Yeah, exactly. That's happening in like old Tokyo because there's a moment where another one of these kids, but is like formally dressed in a suit, it says something like, "Oh, he's in old Tokyo," like obviously reading that or feeling the like reverberations from whatever just happened with the other kid, and you just kind of get the idea that like he's telling this to the military guy with him so that they can go pick him up or find him or whatever. But yeah, that's happening in kind of a different area. Uh, even though at some point Tetsuo, one of the main characters and also a friend of Kaneda and part of the gang, kind of goes off ahead when fighting the clown gang or whatever into old Tokyo and ends up almost running over this kid. And that's kind of what starts this whole weird situation in this movie. He nearly crashes into the kid, flies off his bike and is badly injured, gets picked up by the military guys, and the rest of the gang also get all arrested for gang violence, I guess. Oh no, they were wondering if the capsule gang was involved with this man who was stealing this child, essentially. So they brought them in for questioning, I think, is how that goes.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just trying to find where, like I said, I have like 3 pages of notes. There's so much that happens. It's crazy. So I think this is also where we first hear, do they even say the word Akira yet? I don't think they do, but we get this.
I think so.
They do? They might, yeah.
I think they say the word Akira, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I don't necessarily remember either, but they definitely do some initial reading and find that Tetsuo, when he almost collides with this Esper, the kids' names are called, they're called Espers. When he almost collides with the Esper, something like triggered that one of the other Espers kind of reads that he has maybe some like latent ability in him, and we find out pretty quickly. They do an initial test and they find that he has like a similar power reading or whatever to this kid named Akira that we find out like much later is the cause of the first explosion, when he was so full of power that he couldn't contain it anymore and basically exploded like a nuclear bomb during testing. So the fact that they see these same things in this other kid kind of like put a big red alert on him or whatever to kind of continuously just test him out and see if it gets worse or whatever. Like they need to keep an eye on him. But of course, the scientists also want to test him to see if they can utilize and awaken that abilities of as well.
Yeah, and I really I understand Tetsuo is kind of a shithead, but I
Yeah.
related to him so much because I get chronic migraines. And so when he started complaining about his head hurting all the time, and it was making him see things like all of his hallucinations. Like my
Yeah.
migraines still good hallucinations like his does. But man, I related to him deeply in that moment where he was like screaming in pain. And I just so bad.
Yeah. Like it's not very far in either. He escapes the facility with his girlfriend Kaori, and they go for kind of like a joyride to try to. He steals Kaneda's bike to see if like he tries to get away from it all with her or whatever, and gets attacked by the clown gang, where Kaori gets assaulted, uh, physically, like just clotheslined off a bike or whatever, and then yeah, just really bad shit or whatever. And it's that moment after like the altercation and the fight is over that he just starts hearing Akira in his mind and having really bad migraines and hallucinations. And that's kind of like, I think that's the first really weird gory moment where he sees his bowels coming out, like he's being disemboweled or whatever. His guts are like flying out of his stomach and he's trying to like scoop them in, even though that's all in his mind or whatever. um and I think that might be the first time we see Akira as well.
I don't even remember that. Like if he did see Akira, I don't even
Hmm.
remember that part.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he sees a flash of like a bunch of stuff. I'm pretty sure Akira is like in there. The name definitely rings in his mind, if nothing else, though. That I do remember.
Oh yeah, he for sure like remembers or hears the name, but I don't remember if he saw like the physical embodiment of Akira, like the
Right.
kid. But if he did, it probably was just like a flash, and he
Yeah.
probably just assumed it was like a hallucination or something that wasn't real because of all the other stuff going on.
Yeah, 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 for sure. And again, they all get picked up and arrested because that's what happens to these kids. Is this a time where they go for questioning again or whatever? I believe this is where Kaneda like has the hots for a resistance girl who was also arrested that he sees in the crowd called Kay, and he like brings her out when they're released and saying that like, oh, she's with us too, can she go? Don't they like get thrown into school where the principal beats the shit out of them? Was this time or the time before? Because that's just such a weird moment.
Um, I think that was this time, but yeah,
Yeah.
when they're all in the principal's office and he like punches them in the face.
Yeah. Like it's really fucked up. And
Oh, and
there's no
again,
point to it.
this was released in the 80s. And like maybe because I was born in 91, so I missed out on the 80s, but like maybe that was how they handled discipline in schools back then.
I don't think they just punch them in the face. Maybe like the ruler or something, but like not just like a bare knuckle boxing fist to the face. I don't think.
That would be insane. Jesus Christ. If somebody
Yeah,
listened to this and like, oh, I'm in Japan in the 80s and they definitely fucked us up. That
yeah,
would
they
be
definitely
wild.
punched me in the
Jesus.
face multiple times for being late or whatever. Like, Jesus Christ, that's fucking crazy. Um, Tetsuo's put back into like a government facility for testing, and this is where it really starts to like unlock him though, because well, I guess maybe he was being unlocked already because he had the episode where he was like hallucinating or whatever. Um, but the thing that like I think everybody remembers is this is when the Espers attack him at night to try to stop him from trying to like join with Akira or get more powerful or unlock himself more. And they do so by like creating these weird like giant teddy bear that looks like it's all milky or whatever, and the car specifically that spits up milk everywhere and looks weirdly phallic. Yeah, it's a weird fever dream moment, and I think that's one of the more memorable visual things in this movie. That's one that stuck with me from the first time I've seen it to now. So it's interesting. That's an interesting part.
Yeah, and I again, what Tetsuo is so interesting because you learn, I think, pretty early on that he is not much of a fighter. Like Kaneda has had to defend him, from fights and stuff. And he's never been
Yeah,
like super tough. And so to like have these kind of these childish imagery things of like toys and teddy bears as like a source of horror for him, I found so fascinating. And I want to know like if there was a reason why, they made it like that instead of just doing like, I don't know, vampires or ghosts or something, more kind of just standard in the world of like scary imagery.
yeah. I think it's literally just because the espers are children, so it's kind of just what they know. That's what I assume. Um, like for the creator, it's probably because it's visually more interesting than like a
Yeah.
monster or whatever. It definitely stands out either way. And I hate the milky look. Like there's something about that teddy bear with like the milky lines all over him or whatever. It's just I hate that so much. It bugs me every time I watch this movie. That part
So like
freaks
you would
me
have
out.
been fine if it was like blood, you would have been fine.
Yeah,
But the fact that it was kind of milk that
it,
got you bad, all right.
yeah. I don't know why. It's weird. I don't like milk for what that's worth. So like maybe there's something there.
Oh,
But
maybe, man. I love milk, and that scene did not bother me at all. But again, I was really like fascinated by the fact that they were using toys. I
yeah,
loved that part, the kind of horror you can imagine with childhood.
yeah. That whole part is kind of cool too because so like they they eventually I'm trying to remember how that part ends. Oh, he steps on a glass, it shatters,
Oh
just
yeah.
like goes into his foot, and while he's pulling it out, the blood and like the violence of that moment of the glass like breaking in his foot freaked out the espers, so they kind of like broke their not spell, but like their power or whatever, and ran away, and that kind of like gave Tetsuo like the moment to realize, oh, this is what happened, and starts kind of chasing after them or whatever, being a little more angry and upset at the situation rather than scared at this moment. And weirdly, I think them attacking like that to try to like freak him out or stop him from gaining more power and like evolving, essentially, for lack of a better term, I think helped push him to do it because he wasn't feeling good. He wasn't like really with it. He was kind of lethargic, just kind of like laying in bed. Like when they start all that weird shit, he's weirdly like he's nonplussed about it. Like he's just looking at it and just kind of like there. He's not freaked out really. He's just kind of watching all this weird shit happen. Probably because after all those hallucinations, he maybe got used to it or just doesn't know what's real anymore. And I think when that like spell kind of breaks and he breaks the glass in his foot or whatever, it kind of sets him off, and that's when he starts. I think that might be the first time he uses his powers when the like the police or the military guards or whatever come to put him back in his room, and he just murders them like easily, with no problem with his mind or whatever. And I think that's the thing that kind of starts him realizing like, oh, he has power. And especially like what you said about how Tetsuo was kind of always the younger brother to Kaneda, where he had to be stood up for. He even has a little freak out about how like, why do you always, he tells him like, why do you always have to save me? I had it or whatever. I'm not always going to be weak and powerless or whatever. This was like the first moment that he realizes that he does have power, and like an incredible amount of it, where he just easily kills like the guards with no problem and breaks out to chase after the espers or whatever. And that's kind of like what starts the third act, I would say, of him kind of going on his rampage.
Yeah, and I thought that was really interesting because I at one point I think that the scientist is looking at this power, because he can like observe this like weird power, and at one point he says something about one of the kids having like the power of a god, And I can't
Mhm.
remember if he was talking about Akira specifically or one of the other kids, but I remember him saying something like that. And I, as much as I hated the scene, like Tetsuo killing people, obviously, I loved that moment for him when he did realize that he did have power and
Mhm.
he could actually like defend himself. So I hate how he did it, but I'm glad that he got a chance to realize that about himself.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. It is Akira that had kind of like the godlike powers. They all kind of did. Um, and I think there's like a conversation that they say or talk about in here where giving the powers to like a human of a god is bad in the way that like if you gave an amoeba, I think their terms or whatever are giving an amoeba the powers of a human or whatever, the amoeba is going to do what amoebas do, even though they're more powerful now, which is like replicate and take over and blah, 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 eat. Um, and kind of like with humans, right? When they have the power of a god, they're going to like put in their greed, their ambition, all of the like bad things that humans do when they have that power or whatever. It's just gonna kind of exacerbate the situation. And I think that's kind of like this moment here realized where Tetsuo definitely has history where he's felt powerless and he wants to lash out or whatever. And now that he's realizing that he has potential to tap into this power of a god, he's become dangerous, right? And this is where, like, this is the problem. I think the Espers even say that, like, much like maybe this is even where Star Wars takes it, that Tetsuo getting and realizing these powers when he's a little bit older is dangerous because as a kid, when there were previously like honing these or whatever, you're more of like a free spirit and you're not as like damaged as a person or whatever. So it's a little safer. Where Tetsuo was already like fucked up or whatever. I'm sure this is where Star Wars takes it, actually, now that like I'm saying it out loud, where the Padawans or whatever are supposed to be younger because they're more malleable, they're easier going or whatever. They don't have baggage. So when they get like the powers of the Force, it's not super irresponsible. And there's kind of like a whole thing in this movie and this universe where the parapsychology and like honing the psychic skills or whatever of these kids should only be happening to the kids, which is why the Espers think it's irresponsible that Tetsuo is being awakened right now. Like they know that he's going to be an issue because he has this incredible amount of power that they've seen before, but he's also like maybe a worse vessel for it, so, which is why they're trying to stop it, right?
Yeah, and we, when you were talking about the Star Wars stuff, I was also thinking about just different kind of God related stories that are similar to this.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously the ones in anime are like, Berserk and Death
Yep.
Note. And I wouldn't be surprised if like those stories got that idea from Akira because it is such a strong theme.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure. At least I think so. Uh, I think it's obvious that the stuff I find interesting, and arguably what they found interesting enough for the film, is the Tetsuo stuff, which is why I keep talking about like this part. Because at the same time, Kaneda and the gang or whatever, they are kind of doing stuff on their side where they're talking to the police, and maybe most importantly, Kaneda saves Kay when they're like being arrested or some resistance thing is going on from, and she shoots a cop, so they have to go to like the resistance hideout, and there's this whole like meeting the leader of the resistance and finding out that the actual leader of the resistance or the person that started this terrorist organization also a parliament member or whatever. He's a mole in the government. There's this whole political intrigue thing that, to be honest with you, I never found compelling or interesting, but it is important enough that it probably should be talked about, I guess.
Yeah, I also didn't feel like it was all that interesting, and I think part of it, I also just didn't care much more for Kaneda's like part of the story because he was such a creep. Like he would not leave Kay alone, and I'm like, dude, this is not the time or the place to hit on this woman you just met. What is your deal? She just shot somebody. Why? Just leave her the fuck alone. So like, man, I don't like it.
Yeah, that's fair. Like Kaneda's whole thing is that he has a really cool bike. He has an iconic jacket. Well, now after this came out, and he yells Tetsuo a lot in the last half an hour of the movie. Those are his things.
Because he's really gay for Tetsuo. Yeah, and I like the use of the color red because
yeah,
you know, when I see red, I immediately think of like blood.
yeah,
And this movie is obviously very graphic, and so the fact that like Kaneda again, like you said, dressed in all red, had a red bike. I It's just interesting that he wasn't more violent, I guess, and
yeah,
didn't struggle with that kind of tendency.
yeah.
And
He's like a rebellious youth, but he's not like a psychopath, if that makes sense. Like
yeah,
he'll fight back and
yeah.
stuff, or he'll like cause chaos or mischief, but he won't go around murdering people because that's not what he does.
I was gonna say like later on Tetsuo kind of dons some red and it's just more fitting for him because of all of
Uh,
the damage that he does.
totally, yeah, for sure. Uh, so yeah, there's this whole political intrigue thing. The leader, Mr. Nezu of the resistance, is also a parliament member who resorts to a lot of blackmailing stuff and just like really gross shit. His whole thing is that he started the resistance and he wants to feed the information of Akira and those and like the psychics and whatever to the cults. There's like a bunch of cult members or whatever that kind of there's a cult of Akira that kind of started after the big boom incident in 1988 in this world, where these cult members get bits and pieces of information of what really happened, that it wasn't just a nuclear strike that and like World War III happening or whatever. And so they revere this person as a god, Akira or whatever, as a god. Um, and what Nezu wants is basically to start a giant coup with you, like using the cults and the terrorist organizations or whatever to overthrow the government so that he can position himself kind of as like the main leader of like all of them or whatever. Yeah, just really shitty politician stuff. And I just don't care. He's like a rat piece of shit and he dies like in an alley after having a heart attack because he's just a gross bastard. Like there's nothing special or anything about him, but his whole role I think is also important in just the world building aspect of like how fucked Neo Tokyo is, that it's being run by this council of bureaucrats of which there's like people with their own ulterior motives and whatever in there. And the only real good person, we'll call it, is the Colonel Shikishima. Even though he seems like kind of the bad guy at the beginning, you realize he's the only one with any like honor, and he's the only one trying to keep the fucked up politicians from like ruining everything. He's the one that's kind of keeping the Akira project under wraps and trying to like keep Tetsuo from going crazy. He's the one that like really actually cares about the espers, the children. So Shikishima is like actually the GOAT, even though he's kind of painted as a villain in the first half of the movie, which is kind of interesting as well. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff going on that side, but back then and now, my heart is with Tetsuo and the weird, like psychic, paranormal stuff. Like that's what I like. So that's kind of the stuff that I care about. Every time it goes to the other people, I kind of like zone out a little bit, to be honest. It's just boring to me.
Yeah, I feel the same way. And I'm also with you with the Colonel. I was not expecting because of how he comes across in the first half of the movie, I was not expecting to like him by the end of it. But really
Yeah,
seeing him with the Espers really got to me because I was like, oh, you're not being a shit in like because you're just a shitty person. You're trying to do what you think is best for these kids.
right.
So like now I understand him a lot better. And I think that if I watch this movie in the future, I will at least have like that kind of mentality of like the Colonel's not really a bad guy. He's like the only person here you might want to root for.
Yeah, which is, well, I mean, we'll talk about kind of like the underlying themes and stuff. He's obviously like the characterization of the Japanese military complex in like that era or whatever. So it's kind of weird how much, how like honorable he is, because I don't know. I guess maybe that's how they felt about their military. That's not something I've ever felt about the military over here, but maybe it was different in Japan in the 80s. It probably was because, they had kind of a big global event happen that really fucked up a lot of stuff for them, we'll say, in 1945. So I'm sure
Yeah.
they see things a lot different than I will ever. All of this stuff, the important part of this stuff is that it kind of gives a reason why Kei and Kaneda are going to be in the same place as Tetsuo, because they are planning a way with the resistance to try to break him out of the government facility. And the resistance tries, they get gunned down by just like these cool hover sleds with miniguns on them, which I thought was kind of sick. That Yeah, I don't know. The resistance sucks. Like, they go to try to save Tetsuo and they all die, like, basically.
Yeah,
Oh,
I love watching or and reading like dystopian, young adult stories. I find that fascinating. And this has to be the worst, the absolute worst resistance I have ever seen.
yeah.
Christ.
They they are they're not good. But also it's probably because their leadership is like a double or triple agent essentially. Like they're there to die essentially for politicians and all that garbage. So I guess I can understand why, but it does suck that they don't put up any fight at all. And they seem kind of just like, it seems very Deus Ex Machina that Kaneda and Kei would get away from this massacre that happens, but they get to drive a cool hover sled thing, so that's neat, I guess, to go rescue Tetsuo.
This hover thing that Kanema just magically knows how to drive, even though he's never seen it before in his life.
He is the most Mary Sue, for sure. because
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
because soon also he will know how to operate a laser cannon gun as well, very adaptly or adeptly. So yeah, he's the most Mary Sue ever, which is hilarious to me. But whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, and I assume that you're right about why the resistance is the way that it is. And probably just because like you said their boss is a double or triple agent. So like you don't really know what his real motivations are, and therefore the resistance doesn't really know what side they're fighting on. And it was such a frustrating thing to see them act just like be fucking stupid.
Yeah. Like, you can tell that they're not important because the head of the resistance group's name is just Ryu, and the leader is Mr. Nezu. Like, they don't have like a last name or anything. You can tell they're not important.
Yeah, yeah,
They're
for
just
sure. Like
there
you're only meant to focus on Kaneda and Kay.
for sure. Yeah. Um, we find out here that Kay has some psychic ability because the Esper, what's her name? Kyoko, I think. Sorry, I wrote it down here. I just want to find it. Yeah,
Yeah,
Kyoko,
it's
the
Kyoko.
female one, is able to like talk in her mind, like telepathically talk to her to get them to where Tetsuo kind of has them backed into a corner. And they show up like at the last minute where Tetsuo has thrown the espers around. They're kind of knocked out in the room, and he's interrogating Kyoko about what Akira is and where the body of Akira is being held, which he finds out it's underneath the Olympic Stadium for the Olympics that were supposed to happen soon. And he just kind of like leaves. And that's where the third act, like final confrontation stuff starts, basically, is from there.
Yeah, and like seeing him again, I don't like Kaneda, but still seeing Tetsuo treat him kind of like shit was hard. And I get it again
Yeah.
because like Tetsuo was always kind of weak, and he finally has this power that he can do whatever he wants with. But it just made me really sad when they're like reunited, and Tetsuo's like, "Oh, you can fuck off." Okay,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah, exactly. The Supreme Council, the people that rule Neo Tokyo, go to Colonel Shikishima or send a messenger to remove him from command, to which he orders his police unit or whatever, his unit, to kill the messenger, basically doing a coup and taking control of the police and the military and using both of them to go after Tetsuo, because he knows that Tetsuo is the biggest threat right now. And this causes the whole city to be put under martial law as they attempt to stop Tetsuo using every resource they have. And Tetsuo just literally just like mind fucks them. He just crushes their tanks and throws them around. Just nothing. Can't do anything to stop them.
yeah, and I don't know if this is before or after he comes across the military, but he also goes to that bar that
Yeah, he
you
goes to the
see him
capsule
in
gang hideout.
Grenada.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he like just tries to take drugs from the bartender. Um, and then the
Yeah.
bartender ends up just sassing him too much, and Tetsuo kills him, which is again like also really heartbreaking considering like that was the place that they would hang out, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Tetsuo kills, I think, everybody in that hideout or whatever. He basically kills the gang, except for the one guy whose name I can never remember, that also is at the end. So I'm sorry, guy, that I don't remember your name and I didn't write down because I forgot that he's even a character. But whatever. Yeah, no, that is a shitty thing because he goes to their their hideout or whatever, the place that they spent all their time, and just murders everybody's. It just kind of also shows that Tetsuo, like, I shouldn't keep putting things back to Star Wars, but it's the killing the youngins type moment, right? Like killing kind of the innocent people or whatever from the past, from your past or whatever. Like he goes there and murders them all. It's around this time though. You're right. It's somewhere in the military attacking him. It might be before, but I don't remember. It's somewhere there.
Yeah, it's somewhere. He just like destroys a lot of people, but I also found that really, you know, heartbreaking and interesting because it shows that he doesn't really care who he hurts to
Yeah,
get like ahead. You know, it makes sense that he would like kill the military people because they're like in his way trying to like hurt him back, but like he didn't really need to kill the bartender, right?
totally.
He just did it because he could, and it's just such a sad like, oh, I one of those I can do this, so I'm going to, and not, maybe I shouldn't, because morals.
Yeah. It, it definitely makes me wonder if like is there a reason why certain people don't have like power and
Oh,
ability to do sort of stuff like Fate, right? Like if he had the strength and ability to do this before, would he have? Like we've seen what he does with power, he abuses it. Or is it is it because he's been abused and wasn't able to stand up for himself for so long that he abuses? It's this weird philosophical like chicken and egg situation that I don't know. It's either way, it doesn't matter because at this point now he is able to do something about it, and he's choosing all the wrong decisions. He's just kind of being a real piece of shit, to be honest.
yeah, he is.
Yeah. Um. So after all of this, Kay gets, what's the word? Like, not abducted. What's the word I'm thinking of here? Like used by Kyoko to unlock, I think, her psychic abilities or whatever, because there's a confrontation where Kei and Tetsuo fight at the stadium where the body of Akira is being kept cryogenically frozen underneath. And this is the moment where Kei like loses the fight and Tetsuo kind of raises the cryogenic chamber from the ground into the stadium and opens it up to find the body of Akira is actually like nervous systems and fluids and stuff and capsules just completely all separated, because there was, I'm guessing, little to nothing left of the actual human body, like any of the limbs left or whatever. So he just sets up all these like little capsules of bits and pieces of Akira and gets ready to absorb them or something. I don't really know how he knows what he's doing, but he seems to here. I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, I think when he initially went to the stadium, he was expecting to like see a person, right? And
Yeah.
so now he just kind of has these little bits of what Akira was.
Yeah.
And now he's just like, I guess I'm gonna absorb this now.
Yeah, it's odd because some of those like containers seem to be like literally a piece of nervous system on like a computer chip or something. Like I don't understand what they were doing. I don't get it, but whatever. It doesn't matter. Maybe it's just because it looks cooler or something. But yeah, it's odd.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with it just looks cooler because I also don't understand the science behind like what they were trying to do.
Totally. Yeah. Kaneda also shows up here, and this is kind of where we get a little bit more of their backstory, where they're talking about their past and like the orphanage thing. We find this is where like we find out Kaneda kind of always stuck up for Tetsuo, got his like what was it, toy car back from some bullies or whatever, even though he took a beating for it. All of that just like brotherly type shit or whatever. We get kind of that backstory happening here. But the most important thing is that while this is happening, he takes a sneak shot with his gun to try to kill him. Like out of nowhere with he has like the gun down by his side and he just takes like a shot or whatever with it. And that's kind of what starts the final confrontation between the two of them. And eventually he gets a good shot with his weird laser cannon gun into the chest of Tetsuo, but I guess I've always interpreted this as the power was like too little to actually do real damage. So it doesn't actually do anything. Like it pierces him, but not enough to like kill him, I guess, is what the theory is there. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, and maybe maybe he was hoping to just like weaken Tetsuo just to kind of, like maybe bring him a little bit more down to earth. Like, you are not God, you can be hurt. You should be careful. Also, like, I love you and I want you to like I kind of want you to come back to being normal, you know?
Yeah, it could be. Yeah. It also could just be that Kaneda's impulsive, because we've definitely seen that before too. Giving into his emotions a little too much. Like,
God,
seemed like a good
fucking-
idea at the time to shoot my friend in the chest. Even though
Yeah.
it did nothing. Actually, it didn't do nothing. It distracted Tetsuo enough so that Colonel Shikishima could do an orbital strike on him and blow his arm off.
Oh my God, yeah. The number
That
of
was
like
cool.
ways that man and the military, like the thing in space, that they used to shoot was crazy. And I
Yeah.
really wanted them to be more successful than they were because they were trying everything they could.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, blowing his arm off was no small feat. That was pretty cool, even though right after he literally just flies up to space and tears the space station
Destroys
or
it.
whatever it is apart.
And then
So,
he like makes his arm like again out of, wires and shit.
out of the scraps of the cryogenic chamber and well, whatever's around at that time, yeah. Yeah, that
Yeah.
part is so cool. I think the thing I like about that moment is that when he flies up to space to do it, it cuts all sound. It's like really quiet with just like a little bit of sound when he crunches it up or whatever. And I really like when things that go into space do the like all sound is dampened or whatever, and you're just in that moment visually without any sound effects or noises or any of that stuff. And it does that moment, which I think is really, really cool. A lot of things do that now. I'm guessing that was kind of like a cool sound design idea back in 1988 though. But maybe they did it in other stuff too. I don't remember other movies from that time. That was just a neat
Yeah,
moment.
I also I can appreciate stuff like that too because it just feels so eerie, right? It's
Yeah.
because we don't live in a world but like you and I aren't deaf, so like
Yeah.
we obviously don't live in a world where we just can't hear anything. And so to have moments like that in space, like it makes sense, obviously. And then it's just like a really cool effect that they have. And yeah, I would like to know how many other like movies or shows would like do that back then.
Yeah.
And like you said, I'm sure a lot of things do it now because we can. But yeah.
Yeah. My first thought is that Dead Space does this really well, where like there'll be sounds of like you walking around in the spaceship or whatever, maybe an alarm going off, sounds of monsters, necromorphs or whatever, making like screeching sounds or whatever. And every now and then you would go into an area that is outside of the ship or whatever, like
Earth.
into space or whatever, and it would just go completely silent. And those moments are so cool. And I'm sure those ideas are taken from this and things that do that or whatever, where space is completely silent and it just punctuates that moment a little bit more than normal. I
Yeah, I
like it.
didn't know. I haven't played Dead Space yet, so I that's interesting that you mentioned it was a factor in there. Because the only other sci-fi media that I've really been kind of dealing it with in any capacity, I think it's just I've been replaying the Outer Worlds, and I
Oh
don't
yeah,
know if that has happened in that game because I have admittedly not been paying attention to the sound effects.
sure.
But now that this was brought up, I'm probably gonna pay more attention whether I finish replaying the first game or just jump into the second game when that comes out. Like I'll pay more attention to like how sound changes
Mhm.
depending on the setting.
Yeah, yeah, it's cool. I think where it's really effective is that when you don't have to really pay attention and you just notice it. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, anyways, he destroys the thing. He comes back down to Earth, creates an arm, and this is where Shikishima and the doctor that he's always with, Onishi, who I think they only say his name once or twice in the whole movie. They usually just refer to him as the doctor. Um, the doctor recognizes the power signature coming from Tetsuo is the exact same that was Akira's 30 years prior when the explosion happened. So it's pretty imminent of what's about to happen. His power level is growing too much to put it in Dragon Ball terms, I guess, or whatever. And that's where Kaori, Shikishima, and Kaneda all go to the Olympic Stadium for the final showdown. Shikishima weirdly just like has a handgun, and I don't know what he's thinking. Like I don't know why he's doing that.
Last ditch effort.
I guess because like at least Kaneda had his bike, which is maybe most important, but also his laser cannon sort of thing. And Kaori has her love. I don't know, like
I was thinking that too. Like she has her heart, her affection.
yeah, it's really sad because Kaori obviously really loves Tetsuo, and I think Tetsuo also does her, really. But and like what happens next with her and her being killed is just such a gut punch where she's like one of the only actual innocent good people in this whole fucking world and she just gets crushed.
Yeah.
Like it's
Especially
awful.
because like it is like entirely Tetsuo's fault because he was the
Yeah.
one who continued to like use this power in such a negative way. And
Yeah.
instead of like staying in the lab and being like, all right, doctors, I don't want to deal with this. Like, I don't want to hurt people. He really like, you know, he thrived off of hurting other people. And in the end, it hurt him more than anything else because you're right. You know, I think he did genuinely love Kaori, and then she died in such a horrific way, especially. So,
Yeah, it's such a sad moment because so at that point, so we'll talk about body horror in a second because I'm pretty sure that this movie, I love body horror from when I watched it as a kid when I was younger. Like it screwed my head completely loose or something. But Tetsuo loses control completely, and his power just keeps going up, and it can no longer his body can no longer contain it. So it begins twisting his body and everything in the area to like compensate or whatever. So his flesh just begins rapidly like growing out and up and everywhere, and the like weird tech arm he has of scrap or whatever is kind of like mixed in as well into this weird like biotech mass of flesh and whatever. And that's what is consuming everything in the area, brings in Kaori, and he's like conscious while this is going on because as she's being crushed, he's like screaming out in anguish, asking like for it to stop or whatever. So he can't even control it. And he's like the source of her dying or whatever. So I'm sure that was not great for him either.
going to be the highlight of his life.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not great. He absorbs Kaneda, who kind of blows himself out with the laser cannon. And as the Espers are kind of sitting in prayer in front of the capsules of the body of Akira, and they're starting to be taken over as well. But like they're obviously doing something, and then kind of at the last moment, they summon Akira using the body parts to basically go in and bring Tetsuo out of his weird transformation state and like take him away or whatever. We'll go through like what happens in the end here as well because I want to know your theories about what you think happened. But Tetsuo goes back to like a human form in this giant white light. Kaneda runs in to try to save his friend. The Espers say like Kaneda's innocent. We need to help him. They know that if they go into the white light to help him, they will never come back, but they make that sacrifice. They teleport Kaneda, Kei, and Shikishima away from like the blast area essentially, and the city is completely destroyed. And that's kind of where it ends. What do you think happened?
Oh, Paul, you can't do that to me at almost 3 in the morning. Um, I mean, I've also been kind of like looking at stuff off and on. And I saw some theories that like Tetsuo basically became a black hole, and that's why everything was kind of starting to get like absorbed into him.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that makes a lot of sense. Like if I were to pick a theory, I think that would be a logical one to go with. It's like he just, he was consumed by so much power, and then all of that turned into just him consuming the entire world.
Yeah. The best way I've seen or heard somebody kind of relay what happens is that they wield like a power of a god, Akira and Tetsuo. Tetsuo doesn't know what he's doing, and Akira had more control over it. So the Espers summon Akira back to wherever he went after the initial explosion to kind of bring Tetsuo and them with him out of like this existence or whatever. But in the process, the power of the way it was relayed to me by somebody was power of a god is to create, like creating like universes and existence or whatever. So this power is Tetsuo and Akira basically creating a black hole or a new universe and like blinking out of existence of this one, but in the process obviously taking everything that was in that like radius with it or whatever, because yeah, it all got destroyed. So yes, basically a black hole, and the theory is that the end with the voiceover saying like I am Tetsuo or whatever is Tetsuo kind of ascending and realizing his godhood essentially, and like being like the center point of like new creation or something, like this really heady shit or whatever. The end of the day, none of this matters, because what this movie actually is allegories for nuclear war and how it's affected Japan.
Yeah, yeah, you are absolutely right. That is the only thing that really matters. I think, you know, and again, I can kind of respect this movie for being like a classic and for being important, but I felt really frustrated towards the end because like the colonel and these kids are like, first off, you never really get an explanation for why the one kid initially was taken away by the adult. Like that's never really explained. Um, and then he seems fine and willing to go back to this like where the other kids are. And then you're kind of told throughout the movie by the colonel and by Kyoko that Akira is bad and we need to keep Tetsuo away from Akira. But then they end up using Akira at the end to save the day? Question mark. And
Yeah,
so
basically.
I yeah, and so I don't know if that's something that gets more fleshed out in the manga, and if it's just like, well, this was a 2-hour movie, so there's
Yeah.
only so much they could do.
So the manga is 6 volumes, and the movie adapts from what I've been told, volume 1, a decent amount of volume 2, and then the like end of the movie is a mashup of bits and pieces out of volume 3, 4, 5, and 6 to make the ending. So it truncates a lot of stuff, like a lot of stuff.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, that makes
uh,
sense. Whenever you mentioned that it was 6 thick volumes, I was like, oh, yeah, they definitely like just took some stuff out and kind of meshed it all together, which is I kind of like this more recent trend of like books and manga being adapted into TV shows versus movies.
where they can
And
take their
obviously like manga
time
has
and
been
do
doing
it.
that. Yeah, yeah. And manga's obviously been doing that for a while with anime, right? But
Yeah.
even something like this, they were like, we're just going to make a 2-hour long movie. And I kind of want, because I also saw on Wikipedia, my favorite place to look up information is like
Mhm.
there was a live action movie in the works, and I would
There
be
was
really interested in
multiple
seeing how.
times they've tried.
I would be kind of down to watch a live action version of this just to kind of see how that tells
How
the
they do
story.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I would really love it if someone, whether it's live action or animated or whatever, if they did a TV show of Akira versus a movie.
Mhm.
So I think that would be really, really interesting.
Yeah, it would be cool. Apparently, roughly 1,000 pages or so from the manga were not adapted. So, like, that just goes to show how
Oh,
much stuff is not done at all in this movie.
yeah, damn. Now I'm like really curious to read the books.
Yeah, for sure. That have you seen the set, like the hardcover 35th anniversary like set or whatever? It's so cool, but it's like
Yeah.
$250. It's a little too much for
Oh,
me.
Jesus. No, I saw one on Amazon that's like $140. Um, and I guess like you said $250, you're probably talking about Canadian money.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm talking about, freedom dollars. So maybe we were looking at the same.
It could be. Yeah. It's a really nice set though. Like it's really cool looking. I've looked at it a few times and thought maybe I'd buy that, but I don't know. It's a little bit too much to bite off in one for me, I think. Um,
Yeah, that's fair.
yeah. Also, the manga, this movie, it's weird because you know how Scott Pilgrim came about, where like the movie was made, but they didn't finish the ending yet. Like the final book hadn't been written. I don't know
Oh
if
yeah, I
you.
remember that.
So same thing with this. The movie was made 2 years before the manga finished. So there's like
Uh,
kind of a two continuities essentially. Like the movie and the manga are kind of like standalone versions of the same thing because they kind of both have different stuff in it. So that's another reason to maybe read the manga, is just kind of like see what changed or whatever and how they ended it. Even like what they did at the end of this movie, apparently he took some of that and like changed it a little bit, but the movie influenced how the manga ended as well. It's kind of interesting because usually that doesn't work out that way. So that's kind
yeah,
of
I
cool.
was as soon as you said that, I was like, that's kind of crazy because
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, generally, especially from like what I've seen, like someone who reads a lot and those books become like adaptations of some kind. It's people tend to stick to the material that already existed and like that storyline, and to have like a movie or a TV show come out, like Game of Thrones, right? Like
Yeah.
if George R. R. Martin ever releases the last books in that series, and he's changed some things because of how the TV show worked out, you know,
Yeah.
like that would also be really interesting to kind of see that trajectory. Because yeah, it is weird for that to happen.
It is. Yeah. There was a lot of weird things about this movie. So, another thing that was kind of interesting at the time is that this movie is comprised of over 160,000 pictures, 2,212 shots, and this includes over 450,000 like animation cells to make. This is over double, almost triple most animated films. So like even at the time, or even now, like at that time, it was kind of an incredible thing that they did. And they filmed it at a thing called shooting on ones for the animation, which is basically 24 frames per second as opposed to like 12 or 10 or whatever, which a lot of animations do. This means that every single second of animation was 24 distinct images, which is why a lot of those like weird like gory scenes and stuff like that, there's so much fluid animation because it was every 1 second was 24 frames of animation of different images so that it like consistently looked like it was flowing and moving and stuff, which is incredible. Like it's ridiculous how high budget they did. So the budget for this movie was $10 million, and it was the most expensive Japanese animated film ever until Spirited Away doubled it at like 19 or 20 million or something like that. So like
Yeah, God,
Akira
that's
was
so much
cutting
money. Holy
edge.
shit.
Yeah. Cutting
Yeah.
edge.
And I could kind of tell that it was like it was a very much like a special project because like again, even though I didn't love the like the art style and the way that people like looked, it felt like a really good movie to watch because of the way that things flowed. And I could tell that
Yeah.
they put a lot of real heart into the animation process and making it
Yeah.
look as good as it could.
Yeah. Also, it was one of the first uh anime movies, Japanese animated movies that did the audio first, pre-recorded, and then did the animations for
Oh,
the mouth movements after, which is not something they did back then for Japanese animated movies. That's a very American way of animation that they adapted for that, which is really cool. And I don't know if you watched the dub or the sub version or whatever, but like the natural Japanese version, the mouth movements and stuff, the syncing is fucking incredible. It's so good. Probably for that reason.
I I watched the first half dubbed.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I watched it like right after I woke up, and I did not trust my brain to actually follow along with subtitles. So I watched the
Sure.
first half dubbed, and then I watched the second half subbed. And yeah, I like seeing the animation sync up to the way that their mouths were moving was incredible. Yeah, like you
It's
said.
very good. Yeah. And hey, there's no reason to. I think the English dub is okay because it has the Black Ranger from Power Rangers as Kaneda, so that's kind of fun.
Yeah, I saw his name on the credits, and I was like, man, my boy.
Yeah, it's weird, like to think that that's who it was, but that's cool. The English dub is pretty good too. Like it's actually not that bad. It's pretty close.
Yeah,
Not a
I'm
bad way
not
to look
like
at it.
I'm not a purist about subbed or dubbed anime.
Yeah,
I honestly don't fucking care.
yeah, yeah, for sure. The only other thing that I had here that I wanted to make you aware of is, have you ever heard of Bart Kira?
Yes, and I was gonna mention this to you because I
Okay.
just saw it today, and I had saved a tab because I was like, if Paul does not know about this, man.
Yeah. So, for anybody else, Bart Kira, I think at just bartkira.com is Akira plus Simpsons is what, or The Simpsons plus Akira, and it's literally just Akira manga with Simpsons characters and locations and all that stuff imposed in there. I don't know if you've ever seen, Homer, I'm 3D Homer. One of
Yeah.
his avatars he uses is Homer's like Akira like body horror moment on stuff. So if you ever see
Oh,
that, it's from that.
that makes so much sense. Okay,
Yeah.
wow. No, no, no. Yeah, I've saved Bart Kira because I you know hopefully I'll read the manga sometime soon. And I also want to have Bart Kira available so I can be like, oh, this scene looks really weird with Bart climbing
Yeah.
because it's just the head. It's just the head that they put on the bodies, and I was like, man, okay.
Yeah. No, it's such a weird cool project. I'm glad you have it and you've saved it or whatever because it's very neat. I definitely want to look into it more, but I feel like I need to read the manga. So I've only read a little bit of the first volume of the manga, not even the full thing. So I would love to dive into that full thing at some point because it seems neat. Um that's kind of all I have. I guess my other thing is that I just disagree completely on I like the animation style myself. I love that like 80s, 90s old anime look and like that era personally. So like the look and style of it I'm a big fan of, but that's obviously just subjective that you like or
Yeah,
grew up
and
with
I
or
mean,
whatever.
and when you explained like they just live in a harsh world and they're the art just reflects that. I understand that. I just have a really hard time with like characters who look and obviously this is like very different from like a book where it's not so visual, but like
Mhm.
when a kid looks like they're grown, that throws me off in the same way that like the animated version of Scott Pilgrim throws me off because they look so
Mm.
young. And so when those characters are like having sex or something, I'm like, this does not seem like something I should be watching because they look like
Sure.
they are children.
Yeah.
So that's just like me and my brain.
No, that's fair because stuff like lolly is disgusting. So I get that like repulsion for sure. This my big problem I guess with like this look and style is that I think what's his name? Tetsuo in some frames looks like he has Down syndrome because his head is way too big and
Oh yeah,
sometimes
you're so right.
sometimes that is like off-putting to me, but I like everybody else I think looks fine personally. But yeah, his forehead is
That's what
way too
you can't
big.
win.
Poor
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah. Right.
Awesome. Do you have anything you want to add or talk about before we sign off here?
I don't I don't think so. I am
Did
definitely
this live up
really
to your
interested in
expectations?
researching more. I mean, I had zero expectations, so
Okay.
sure.
Okay. Do you agree that this is like what do people some people are really like go a little bit too far with it, but do you think this is like one of the most important anime movies of all time?
Um, man, that
You can say
like I
no.
feel
It's
inclined to
fine.
say. I mean, no, I feel inclined to say yes, but I also know that I am not like an expert in that because like my most of my experience with Japanese movies, right, is Studio Ghibli.
Sure.
And like the occasional movie tie-in to anime like Dragon Ball Z or Inuyasha. So like I also I definitely want to watch more Japanese animated movies outside of Ghibli till
Hmm.
especially like ones that were made around the same time as Akira.
Sure.
Um so I can get like a better feel of like um what the media like was back then, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, even stuff like you've played Final Fantasy VII, right?
Yeah.
So even stuff like Final Fantasy VII is obviously super, like takes a lot from it because first of all, Midgard in general, just like the shitty city or whatever, the cyberpunk city. But the most important thing is Genova is Akira, literally, basically 1-to-1, kept in a cryogenic chamber. That whole like scene of the chamber with like all the like coolant pipes and stuff like that. That is straight like copied in Final Fantasy VII. Like there's just so many things in gaming and other stuff that take direct like visual inspiration and thematic inspiration from Akira that like I think it's inarguable that it's important in that regard, but um I don't know. I just think it's a good movie. And I think what they did with their budget and their like having 70 animators to work around the clock or whatever, the high fidelity animation style and whatever. Like I think just in terms of pushing that medium into the film like arena or whatever, where even Ebert recommended Akira in 1989 on his like things you should watch kind of like segment or whatever. Like it kind of broke the anime and animation into our side of the world, I think, more than it would have without this and like other things like this at the time. Even though I think Lucas and Spielberg were the ones that said like this is unmarketable or whatever in the West, and that's just like super not true. And anime is one of the biggest things in the world now, ever since like some of these trailblazers kind of made it over here. Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of rambling on, but I think in terms of like a lot of that stuff, it is inarguably one of the most important things. But uh, I also could understand why somebody might not even like this movie at this point because there's a lot of things that are a little off-putting about it that might be hard for newer generations younger than us to maybe go back to, I think.
Oh yeah, undoubtedly, yeah. I would really like to see this like maybe maybe remade, maybe reimagined depending on the format, but I guess we'll see.
You think Stranger Things literally is just like 11 is Tetsuo? They take that same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Especially because I rewatched because I've been rewatching Stranger Things and like when Elle meets her mother or whatever and she's like super fucked in the head and is just repeating things and some of the stuff she says is like Rainbow Room, like very like childish imagery stuff that's like
Yeah.
meant to comfort kids and these kids are like dealing with psychic abilities. Yeah, I absolutely believe that L is in Tetsuo are basically the same character.
They're numbered too, actually, now that I think about it.
Oh god,
Yeah.
yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay. There's a lot to talk about with Akira, and I think if we read the manga, there's gonna be like a lot of cool things that maybe we learn about that this movie never could have told us about, but that's yet to be decided because I think that's gonna be a big thing. Those books are huge. So we'll discuss.
I lost you there for a second. I think just this is Discord's way of telling us that we should stop.
Yeah. No, that's it. Akira still good even after all these years. I was glad to rewatch it, and I'm glad that you seem to enjoy it. So thanks for indulging me in talking about this movie because it's super important in a lot of ways, and I think it's great.
Yeah, no, thank you for bullying me into watching it because yeah, I just like knew it existed, but I just never felt super compelled to watch it, and I'm glad that I did.